Hi folks, I did the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo video last, and as it happens, and then I did the video for Libra rising for the members part of the channel related to the full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. And as it happens, and I did those yesterday, I think, and as it happens, 2 days ago. Now I did the Virgo video 2 days ago and the Libra rising one yesterday. And as it happens, now that I'm doing more videos to do the free part of the channel and the members only part of the channel, it's as if there's some part of me that is constantly in conversation with this audience. Now, that doesn't mean I'm not off doing different things. I spent an hour and a half on the phone with Spectrum trying to get my Wi-Fi price back to where it was in December, which was an adventure, as it always is, and it reminded me that Mercury is slowing down. This is why I encouraged you in the weekly overview and in my full moon lunar eclipse video to get cracking on communications and stuff before this week was done. But anyway, I still think that we're going to need to remain active no matter what, even if things become chaotic over the next 3 weeks and particularly next week. But I'll talk more about that in the weekly overview that I'm going to do on Sunday. It's a little bit like when you do videos, or sometimes when I do readings for folks, it's like a tap that is turned on, and even once it's turned off, when I'm done recording or the reading is done, there's still a kind of a flow that is going on. And those of you who've done readings with me in the past know that as weird as it isn't unusual for me to sometimes reach out and say, oh, there's just a couple more thoughts. I'm not charging any extra for it. It's just me wanting to get complete. And those of you who've been watching my videos know that it's not unusual for me to do an addendum, and that's exactly what this is. There's one thing that I can't be sure that I mentioned in the full moon lunar eclipse video, and it was driving me crazy, so I thought, let me just do this. I was going to do a video today on Mars going direct, but again, that becomes more relevant as we head further into March. And I thought, let me just get this thought out regarding the eclipses, because it builds on the last video. I also want to try and leave a day's gap between videos. When I post videos every day, it just feels like there isn't enough time for things to be assimilated. Now, I'm not saying that people are watching my videos every 2 days and everyone's keeping on top of it, but it's a little easier to keep on top of it. All right. And then there was something about in the Libra rising video that I was just like, well, I want to share, but I don't want to do an addendum to members' videos. So I thought, I'm going to do this. And it might actually be nice to give you that example of what I have to say in the Libra rising video, because it might give you a sense of how it is that this full moon lunar eclipse is going to work. So that, my dears, is the purpose of this meeting. All right, let's take care of the housekeeping up top. I've gotten it down to, I think, about a minute. There are 3 ways to engage with me. One is to avail of the content I put out for free on this channel. The second is that you can become a member for $6.99 a month or something like that. I think I've got that right. And in the membership part of the channel, I build on the free content and put sign-specific videos. For me, they're relevant for your rising sign. Although if you want to, you can see them for your sun and moon and Venus signs. I still think it's the rising sign that is the most important and the relevant. And then, of course, and in the membership part of the video, I'm also going to be posting some what I will call astrological education content, or just kind of the purpose of the membership part of the video is to allow people to build a relationship with their own charts and to get I'll leave it at that. And it's still relatively new. I mean, I just started the memberships, 3 weeks ago or something like that. And then the third way you can, of course, interact with me is through a personal reading. And if you're interested in that, my email address and information on memberships is in the description box below. So you can use that to get in touch with me, and I can give you rates and all that kind of stuff. There's a $50 30 to 40 minute reading special right now around one topic or one question or one astrological thing going on. And then there's a 60 to 75 minute $100 reading focused just on the astrology of March and April. And it kind of goes from February to the end of the first week of June, but it focuses on the eclipses and the Mercury and the Venus retrograde. There you go. That's my homework. I'm also going to start to minimize my preambles with regard to setting up what this video is about more than I need to. I do that, and I've been doing that because I'm very conscious of the fact that for some people, the video that I'm recording is the very first video that they're going to see, so I feel like I need to catch you up. I'm going to stop, I'm going to do less and less than that so that people who are watching my content can get to the content right away, sooner than they normally have to. And with just letting you know that if you find this useful, to get more context on it, just start to, based on your time and your interest, just go back and you'll have a better sense of the context on which every consecutive video is on. I can't repeat everything that I've said for the past few years or the past few weeks or the past few months in this. All right, let's get to the general point that I want. It's such a minor point. You're going to be like, Abhi, really, you're doing a video on this? I do want to remind you of something. And I've said this to you guys before, and this is true of eclipses. Just remember, and if I said this in the full moon lunar eclipse video 2 days ago and I'm repeating myself, I'm sorry, I just can't remember if I did. But there's something about this time. When you have eclipses and Mercury retrograde and Venus retrograde, and we are entering that eclipse portal between March the 6th and April the 6th, 1 week before the March 13th lunar eclipse and 1 week after the March 29th solar eclipse, during which time Venus will be retrograde for the entire period and Mercury will be retrograde from March the 15th to about April the 6th, 7th. We have eclipses every 6 months, guys. And those of you who, like me, have a few years and decades under your belt, we survive them and we almost can look forward to, I have started to now look forward to with a sense of adventure. And this is very recent for me because usually I'm bracing myself for the reality checks that a Mercury retrograde is going to give me. I now am just like, all right, Mercury, bring it on and let's dust some of the cobwebs away. And if the ultimate message from Mercury is, oh, Abhi, that thing that you were expecting is not going to come through. It isn't what you thought it was. And so don't build your future on pillars of sand. But here's an alternative to consider. That kind of Mercury retrograde, really what the Mercury retrograde is actually about, as opposed to the airplane lost my bags or my laptop finally broke down, or that kind of stuff. So I now have started to welcome these, and I now welcome the eclipses and want them to help move me forward. This eclipse cycle, particularly the eclipse on the 13th, there's no question that because of Saturn's involvement and Saturn's placement where it is this year, it has the potential to be hard. And next week, if we weren't able to clean up certain things by the end of this week, we'll get to the cleanup. By the time the eclipses and Mercury retrograde, kind of spit us out on the other side of April the 6th, and then Venus retrograde is done by the end of April. By the time we get to the middle to the end of April, we'll be in a better place with resolutions and coming through, dealing with the past issues that need to be stabilized or concretized, and moving towards creating the future that we want. Certain things related to the eclipses and the time we are, I find quite exciting, like some of the stuff that's going on with the membership. I can sort of feel stuff in the air, even for me personally, but I can also feel the stresses or pressures related to the Pisces part of the chart, and coming up to a full moon lunar eclipse that is going to be opposite the Sun and Saturn. Now, if you want more details and background on everything that I've said so far, take a look at the full moon lunar eclipse video I posted before this 2 days ago, okay? What I want to say here is, remember with eclipses, it is as if the corridor gets, and again, I'm just like, I don't know if I said this before now, the corridor gets narrower and narrower and narrower. I feel like I did say this 2 days ago, and that's coming back to me. And the universe, the presence of the universe becomes very, very strong with regard to what door, what corridor what outcome the universe thinks is right for you and the universe wants you to walk through. Another way of saying this is, if there are 10 doors available to you, show up and knock on each of them. Be prepared to be ready to go. 9 of those doors, very likely you're going to be banging your head against them and knocking and they won't open. Try as much as you might. And the one that is meant for you, again, it is dependent on you showing up to these doors to the best of your ability. But the one that is meant for us, as I like to say, the hand barely touches the doorknob and it swings open and it pulls you in. It has a flow to it. Not every eclipse in an eclipse cycle that lasts typically for 1.5 to 2.5 years, and this one lasts from the middle of July of 24 to February 27, is going to have the same intensity. But I would look at the video I did 2 days ago. It had a lot of information. It's one of my more thorough videos, not only on the full moon lunar eclipse, but on eclipses in general. But I may have mentioned this, it's coming to me, the visual, but I've also been doing readings recently. And so I can't tell whether I've said this in some readings or whether, but I want you to just understand that there are certain things that are going to have a certain flow behind them, even if the communication dial is going to start to spin. 2 weeks ago, I had a conversation with Spectrum on why has my Wi-Fi rate gone up for the past few weeks? What has happened? What has expired? How do we get it back down? And the conversation had an ease to it. Today, and I was just like, Abhi, you should know better. With a slower Mercury, I kind of had to just be like, I've spent more time talking about porting over my mobile number to you as opposed to figuring out how to get my Wi-Fi down. And the Wi-Fi down was so simple. It was just a repricing. And yes, something had expired, so the price had gone up. And something could have taken 15 minutes. But the call today had a marked Mercury slowing down quality to it. And I was like, well, I'm glad I got that done today, as opposed to wait another couple of days to do it, or another week to do it, when the dial could really be spinning. So the flow is going to be there. The communication dial may spin a certain amount, and a certain amount of work may need to be done to get from A to Z, and you may have those Mercury retrograde moments of, oh my God, why is this person not getting something so basic? And why, when I am looking at them, does it feel like they're speaking in a language I absolutely don't understand? When they're looking at me, they're looking at me as if they, it's the classic, you get something from IKEA, you're putting it together, you don't have all the pieces, and you're talking to customer service, and they're like, but it's not supposed to have this kind of piece. And you're like, I'm looking at it, and it's supposed to have, it's like this bizarre, and then Mercury goes direct, and then 2 days later, everything resolves itself, and you have the same conversation. It's just like, what was that about? So we should expect more of that, but at the same time, the principle still applies. As you move towards creating the future that you want, but most importantly in March, move towards stabilizing the Pisces part of your chart, knocking on all the doors that are available to you. It will, with the eclipses, feel like certain things have a certain flow, and what you're really trying to do is figure out, all right, universe, what are you pulling me through? And the Mercury retrograde energy can work really well with this, because with Mercury retrograde, as I've said, Mercury retrogrades to give us a reality check and to bring us down to earth. Give us some facts that we're missing about the things that we are entertaining and building on and planning for the future. And you realize that that thing that you thought was going to be emerging and it was going to be what this was going to be, you realize, oh, that's not, oh. I thought I was going to get that job. I thought this is where, oh. And in the moment with Mercury retrograde, it can be like, what just happened? There can be disappointment, it can be frustrating. But looking back, you might actually be like, well, what was I thinking in the first place? And thank God that didn't happen. And it could also be Mercury's way of saying, not yet. You've still got things to attend to wherever it is that you are. And it doesn't have to take you years to attend to them. Okay, so but that clarification is helpful, and it could very much be part of this, okay, what door do I need to move through? I was just feeling like with everything that I'd said, this is important. And the reason why I'm focusing on the Pisces part of the chart still is we had the new moon on February the 27th. We're in the month of Pisces. We've got the sun there. The sun's getting ready to make some very important conjunctions over the next week, week and a half, and I will remind you of them again. I've already talked about them in the full moon video and the weekly overview. In the weekly overview early this week, especially, I talked about them to give you a heads up. But when we do the weekly overview for next week on Sunday, I will talk about those again. And the full moon in Virgo is connected to the new moon in Pisces. It's in the opposite sign of Pisces. It is a lunar eclipse, and it is opposite Saturn. So it's very much right now about stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart and taking action to do so. Now, coming to what the second thing that broad thing that I wanted to talk about in this video. When I did the Libra rising video, and this is going to be true for everybody, we're going to experience the full moon as a full moon in Virgo, but we're also going to experience it as a south node full moon lunar eclipse, with the south node meaning that it's an eclipse of releasing something in the second house. Now, I developed this in much greater detail in the actual video around this 2 days ago. But it's a strange mix, because when you have a full moon in some part of the chart, that part of the chart is asserting itself. It is present. When you have a south node lunar eclipse, something in that part of the chart needs to be released. So it's this strange juggle between a part of the chart becoming present and inflamed. It's a full moon. The emotional and intuitive energy is a flame. It's just, you know what a full moon is like. We expect our to-do lists to become unwieldy. We expect to be productive, but we expect everything to sort of start to get just pitched higher and tighter as we get to the full moon, right? So the part of the chart where the full moon is occurring has an intensity to it and a presence to it, but it's also a lunar eclipse of releasing something, because it's a south node lunar eclipse, so there's something that needs to be released. And both those energies could apply, or you could feel those in slightly different ways. When we were looking at the Libra rising chart in the members only Libra rising video, we were talking about the fact that the north node, that the Pisces new moon for a Libra rising chart is in the 6th house of, it's the busiest part of the chart, productivity, getting cracking on things, getting things done, applying for a job, getting the job and self-care part of the chart into alignment, taking responsible action to create a strong foundation in that part of the chart. And we talked about the fact that for Libra rising folks, and in general, when you have a north node eclipse in the 6th house and a south node eclipse in the 12th house, and that's where the Pisces Virgo eclipses are occurring from the middle of July of 24 to February 27, it's a very natural place to have those eclipses, because you have the leaning into eclipses in a part of the chart that invites leaning in and action and taking care of your obligations and taking care of your responsibilities and being in action. And you have the eclipse of release in the 12th house, which is naturally a house of releasing what is done. For an Aries rising chart, this is harder. You've got the north node eclipses in the 12th house, where you're being encouraged to do less. Either that is being forced upon you, or you are deliberately doing that. And the south node eclipses are in the 6th house, where a certain routine or a certain job or a certain day-to-day way of being is temporarily suspended and sometimes permanently released. That is a little bit harder to manage energetically, because the eclipses are happening in houses that energetically are not in sync. The north node requires application, and for an Aries rising chart right now, the sign of Pisces sits in the 12th house, and the north node eclipses are happening in a part of the chart that is about releasing and not applying. So you're being asked to apply in what is kind of a very trapped and flat part of the chart, and release in what is a busy part of the chart. Whereas for a Libra rising chart, the energies are much more in sync. And because the full moon lunar eclipse was also felt week before January 13th, week after January 13th, as I said, it's from that time that you could be feeling this pull of, okay, I need to get back into action. If I've been healing or taking a break or a little bit flat or coming out of the holiday period, then it's time for me to start getting back on the horse and start to create my world and create my reality and stabilize my sixth house and stabilize job and obligation and chore and caretaking related activities more and take responsible action and get back on plan. All of that is fine. One of the things I neglected to mention in the Libra rising video, because I gave you various scenarios with regard to how it is the full moon could play out or the eclipses could play out, is that with the full moon, there could be, full moon is in the 12th house in Virgo. And it's also a full moon lunar eclipse of release. Now, we've already, even in this brief summary, talked about the fact that what it is that needs to be released. But from a full moon perspective, you could, if you have been in a place where you are either actively thinking about your productivity, taking action to, and in the sixth house, it's very important to be productive with an eye towards work-life balance, because in the sixth house, it asks that you take care of your responsibility to others and to yourself. The right diet, the right rest, the right movement. It's interesting that job and health sit in the same part of the chart to some extent, and have this lens of how are we managing the 24 hours in a day that we have? And the answer to how we are managing it is not to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning, taking care of what we feel are our obligations to others. It is about planning and managing our days in such a way that we can efficiently and effectively execute on our responsibilities to others, execute on taking action to create our material life and well-being, but also execute on actively ensure that we're getting the right amount of rest and the right diet and the right movement. It's all about showing up to your calendar and your desk or your workspace, or showing up to your life every day and making it happen and keeping things in balance and being productive. Even rest becomes a planned activity. And it kind of has to. The sixth house would argue that if you do it that way, then because I've been doing so much more this afternoon, I had stuff to do, but I have to tell you, for 2 hours, I just had to nap. And I think that's what happens if your sixth house is out of whack, and you are not assertively scheduling your rest and your self-care, then that self-care will find a way to assert itself. And it's true, I've not been getting a full night's worth of sleep. And it's not just the videos, it's like everything that I'm doing to juggle various things. I'm excited, and there's stuff going on and all. Like as with anything, you have to overcome the resistance of, oh, I have to do this video, that video, and then you start to do it and you just love it. And I thought this would be a 10-minute video and we're already at the 23-minute mark. But the thing I want to say to Libra rising folks, and I wanted to do it in this kind of way to not put addendums in the membership section, but also I thought this was going to be an interesting way to bring up this idea of the fact that it's a full moon and a lunar eclipse. The full moon part of it may, if you have been applying yourself around the 13th, the 48 hours before, 24 hours after, something might come up that asserts itself to make sure that there's enough balance between activity and rest. So because around the time of the full moon, matters related to the opposite house, it's like you're giving attention to one part of the chart where the new moon has occurred for a 4-week period. And as the moon goes around and gets to the opposite part of the chart says, but what about me? And in this case, because it is opposing Saturn, there's something about the full moon that demands that the 12th house also be honored and protected. So if you're finding Libra rising, and everybody else, you can figure out what this might mean for your rising sign based on the house Pisces is in and Virgo's in. The Sun and Saturn are in Pisces. The full moon on the 13th is in Virgo, full moon lunar eclipse. The thing I neglected to mention is that one scenario could be that as you get to, if you have been in productive mode and I need to get this done, I need to get that done, and especially if with the 6th house, the energies are starting to become a little bit manic or maniacal or controlling or overactive, then around the full moon, something could come up or assert itself to remind you to make sure that you know when to release and to find the balance between executing on active responsibilities and self-care responsibilities in a more balanced way. Okay? So everybody else, everybody, if I mentioned the whole sort of corridor narrowing thing in 2 days ago, and I'm repeating this and you're just like, this was a useless video, I'm sorry. I can't remember it. But I think it's an important enough point energetically as today's the 7th, we've just started this portal. As we go through the next 4 weeks, it's an important enough metaphor, especially as things start to become gnarly with Mercury going retrograde, that I felt that I needed to draw attention to it. And Libra rising folks, this, what I've just said, completes, for those of you who are members and watching the sign-specific videos, this adds to and completes your video, but it also allows me to tell everybody about this notion that it's both a full moon and an eclipse of release. And both those energies are at play and how those energies could assert themselves. Okay? As I said, if you're interested in getting a reading with me, my contact information is in the description box below. You can email me there. I can get you information about rates for the specials, the regular readings, information on memberships are there. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you have not done that already. I will continue to post videos for free as I have been doing all along. It is at the heart of what it is that I offer. And when you subscribe, there's a wiggly bell on top. You can subscribe, but then you also have to kind of click on that wiggly bell option on top of the regular bell option to be notified whenever I post new videos. There's a thanks button underneath this video. You can use that to contribute to the channel. You can donate to the channel. Information on that is in the description box, but you can also support the channel for free by liking the video or commenting on it. Likes and comments give the video greater circulation on YouTube. You can tell friends or others about it if you find my content useful. And they can watch my stuff as well if it helps them. I will leave it at this. Hey guys, look, a video under 30 minutes. And then the next video in 2 days' time on Sunday that I will do is going to be the weekly overview for next week. And yes, Mercury is going retro, so, you know. But again, we go through Mercury retrograde 3 times a year. I hope that part of what I am doing, although I fall into the same trap, is to stop getting to a place where we view astrological things as something that give us anxiety, as opposed to understand where they fit in and what they bring to us and why they're actually happening so we can start to work with them. So we've dealt with enough eclipses in our lifetime and enough Mercury retrogrades in our lifetime, and I dare say enough Venus retrogrades in our lifetime to know that we will likely make it through them. The key, whether you're into astrology or not, it's as far as making 3D life as a success, is to be Saturnian about things, which is always a little bit challenging, is to take responsible... Oh, Lord! Seriously! Sorry about this. My laptop... We were talking about... This is so weird. My laptop just went to sleep because I've not been referring to it that much. Remember, I keep referring to my laptop whenever I do these videos. That's why I keep it on. Hold on. So my lights are powered to my laptop, and they have died. What the... There we go. Hello. Back. Not turned into some... whatever. Okay. time to end this and time to stop rambling. We will move forward and face whatever's coming next week with courage. I would just say for those of you who need to be in communication, it's still the 7th. I would say expect Mercury to go into a much more stationary place by the 10th. So over the weekend, by Monday, still try to get things done with regard to, as I said, stabilizing the Pisces part of the chart especially. And outside of that, we'll just deal with whatever we need to deal with over the next 3 weeks, and I'll keep doing more videos to help guide us through it, and etc., etc., etc. But as I was saying, the key to everything, which we have a hard time tapping into, and as I've said to you before, you don't need anything. You don't need astrology. You don't need the tarot. I know that I'm talking like this, I'm putting myself out of business when I say this. There are people I know who are able to come to their lives in a Saturnian way, take responsible, considered, disciplined, wise actions of the cleanest possible intentions that they can come up with. I'm not saying that everybody doesn't fall off the wagon, and I'm not saying, I know that for myself, where astrology and tarot and these things help me, is that I'm so often out of my comfort zone that these tools feel like they're put out there to help me get to a place where I can become more effective. And that's totally fine. Some people take to that Saturnian energy more easily than others. So I'm not saying this to make anybody feel badly about themselves. What I'm just saying is that no matter what is going on from an astrological perspective or non-astrological perspective, or at any point in time, we all have a connection to source directly within us. And when push comes to shove, if we're being considered and non-reactive in our actions and thinking about cause and effect and intentions, the answers can be there for us to find. I was pausing because this is turning into a philosophical treatise. Our North Node placement in the birth chart really does point to what our traps are and what our strategies ought to be. And sometimes I think the things that get us off of, our comfort zone or out of the flow is when we kind of get pulled in that direction, because there's a propensity to be pulled in that direction, in the direction of the South Node in the birth chart. It's already strong. It's like a whirlpool. It keeps pulling you back in, but we're here to move in that direction. It helps to know, I think, what the strategies are that are right for you. And the people who, I think, don't get too involved in this kind of stuff are people who I find when I see their charts, they're kind of aligned with that naturally. A lot has to do with how we're brought up. A lot has to do with this idea of the soul contracts that we keep. Are we brought up in environments that deliberately strengthen our South Node so that we have to work that much harder to become conscious of our North Node direction and the strategies that we need to adopt through resistance, but I find that people who are encouraged to tap into themselves in their teens and their 20s and to live in integrity with themselves, as opposed to somebody else's ideas of what is right or wrong or good or bad, or what you should do and should not do, or how you should live, etc. I find that they're able to tap into that energy of being able to take care of themselves and use their own judgment much more easily in their 20s and 30s than those of us who, who were not encouraged to do so, if that makes sense. Anyway, I will leave it at that so you don't get more of a headache. 2 days from now, weekly overview. I'm also going to continue to keep posting the science-specific videos in the membership part of the channel. The full moon is not till Thursday, folks, so it's coming. They're going to come and be patient, and we'll leave it at that. All right, thanks for your attention. Thanks. Welcome to new members. Thanks.